Welcome back. We are WNST, AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore. We are at Fadley's at the Lexington Market. We are doing live radio for the first time in 10 years. I have one of my tech guys, Gregg Landry, here, that if anything breaks down, at least during this segment, Towson Transfers can fix things here. We're doing a cup of Super Bowl at his Crab Cake Row. We're at Fadley's today. We'll be at Costas all day Tuesday. Coco's all day Wednesday. Thursday at State Fair all day. And then on Friday at Pappas up in Cockeysville. Gregg Landry, am I going to have my voice at 4:59? What is your prediction for me walking out of Pappas alive at 5:01 on Friday afternoon in Cockeysville?
You've got this. You've got this. This is years of training. You're going to be all set. You're going to be walking out of there with a great voice and a big smile on your face, I'm sure.
All right. Well, Gregg has been my friend for the beginning of time. Since the last time we got together, he lost his father-in-law. I lost my friend in Harvey Myers, who was the Emerald Tavern. One of my first sponsors put a satellite dish on my roof. So we're going to talk about Harvey a little bit. Gregg owns Towson Transfers. It was Blue Rock Productions. You did something really momentous in that this week was solved. You were the videographer of all of my Free the Birds commercials back in the day. It was 18 years ago. It took me 18 years to get rid of these people. You think I'm not going to enjoy the Orioles? You think I'm not going to come down here and have a crab cake and walk to Camden Yards when David Rubenstein owns it? Come on. It's a big week.
You were the first person I thought of when I heard this.
Well,
big news.
Gregg's been my friend forever, and Gregg reached to me a number of years ago when I started doing Bill Cole. After my wife was ill in 14 and 15, I decided I wanted to do something called a community and charity series. Bill Cole said, I'll sponsor that. You're going to stop talking about sports, I'll sponsor it. So Bill gave me a coffee mug, and I went out and said, anybody who has a charity or community cause, tell me about it. Let's promote it on the air. Let's do a segment. We can talk about your business, talk sports, talk football, baseball, whatever you want. Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, whatever you want to talk about. But let's talk about lifting the community. And this was the precursor to Baltimore Positive, which came along in 18. Mm-hmm. So 16 and 17, I was doing community conversations. And Gregg's a listener. He always tells me when things are wrong with ads and we're out of date and weird things. Hope you weren't listening at 9:15 this morning. We went off the air, but that's all right. We're fixed now. You told me, you're like, my charity's right next door to where you live. And I live at the Inner Harbor. I lived at the Inner Harbor for 19 years. We lived at Harbor Court, which is 10 East Lee Street. It's a big brick building right at the Inner Harbor, right behind the Harbor Court Hotel. And you told me of a group, and my wife and I have donated to this group. My wife took bags of stuff over. You said to me, this is for unfortunate women and children who don't have a home. It's a place to live. And Yvonne Terry is your guest here today. So, Gregg, I'm going to let you, because we've done a lot of background on this before Yvonne showed up, right?
Yes.
I got to get your mic on there, sweetie.
Okay.
Now you sound like a superstar. How
I'm
are
here
you?
Now. I'm great,
Welcome.
Nestor. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for having me back in my old neighborhood, because this was my old neighborhood here.
Indeed.
But, Gregg, for years you've been involved with this charity.
For a long time. Women with children, a very difficult population for the homeless services. There's a lot involved. I mean, there's special accommodations. You have to educate the children. There's so many different things that need to be done, and Baltimore Outreach Services has done it so well for so many years. My wife Susan and I are just involved as much as we can as patrons. We volunteer. We've both been on the board, and it's just a great organization with an incredibly important need here in the city.
Now, this is a church, literally, right? In the back of my...
Yes.
It literally was 50 paces from my front door. Like, there was a building that was built between the church and my building years ago.
Yep.
But we have walked things down to your place because it was the nearest, closest. My wife would say, we don't need that, but there's a lady a block away that can put that in the bag. We'll take that over there. So we have brought things to your doorstep several times.
701 South Charles Street.
Well, tell me about your journey in this and your role in this and what we're doing there. I moved out of the neighborhood 2 years ago last week, so I live out in the Towson area now, but I'm sure you're still doing great work down there.
We are. We've been doing it for 20 years now, and it is a safe haven for homeless women and children. And we provide case management, supportive services, along with a safe environment and a warm bed and clothing and hygiene, all of those things that they might need.
How does someone find you or you find them? Referrals and need basis. I'm sure you just don't have women with their children coming up banging on your door knowing about you. Maybe you do
Absolutely, we
now.
do. Yeah,
Maybe you do
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
the awareness needs to be there, right?
That's true. That's true. And so we are on a number of lists around the city, and we also work with the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. So we're in their network and in their database. The police department know about us. The Johns Hopkins Bayview knows about us. So we're in that network. So we get referrals from the hospital. We get referrals from the police. We get walk-ins. People walk up to our door literally and knock on the door and say, this is our situation. We get network from other places, like my sister's place.
Bill
will
McCarthy.
refer.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a number of ways that people find us. Now, we don't broadcast.
Well, you're not a big
Only
place,
for
right?
the safety, and for the safety of our
How
women and children.
many people can you support at any one given time? And I would think for more than anything, it's a graduation program. It's not a permanent situation.
Absolutely,
It's a transition place where professionals like you can help people who have found themselves in a really, really awful circumstance.
That's right, Nestor. We have up to 35 beds where we can house women with children. We try to focus on women with children because there's only 3 shelters that accept children in the city.
That's
So our
amazing.
focus
Why?
I know, right?
No, I mean, is there
know.
a why?
It's
Is it-
difficult.
It's very difficult to
I
take
don't
care
know
of
if it's the
children.
environment. Yeah. I don't know. For their safety, maybe. But just us and 2 others.
So if
are
you think
able to
about
take in
like a
children.
homeless shelter for men, and which is a huge need in the city, you've got an opportunity where you can maybe put like as many rows and bunks as you can fit in a room.
Yeah.
But families and women, they have special needs, and you want to be able to have some sort of privacy
true.
and that the feeling
That's
of security for a family. So you need the right amount of space, you need the right amount of staffing, and there's just a lot of moving dynamics that you have to deal with. So it's difficult. That's why we
Yeah.
appreciate that Boss stepped up and was trying to fill this gap and an important need in the city, and they do it and do it really well.
You said boss.
Boss.
Go ahead.
Baltimore Outreach Services.
That's easy to remember that.
Yeah,
Yes, boss.
That's
B-O-S.
it. BOS.
How did you get involved in this, Gregg? I've known you forever, and we're going to talk a little bit about Harvey and your wife and
Sure.
All of that. But I've known you a long time. I don't know at what point you reached. I think it was when I was doing my community charity series, maybe 7-8 years ago. You said to me, "I got a place that you need to feature."
Yeah.
And that's how all of this happened this week. I yelled out, "Hey, you got a charity? Come see me." I didn't inbound anybody. Everybody inbounded me. But you were inbounding me in the beginning. How did you find out? You were in the west side of town, northwest side of town, where your business was. You live on the northeast side of town.
That's right.
How do you find a charity at the Inner Harbor? How did this come about?
Well, we used to live in the neighborhood. We lived in South Baltimore, down on Belt Street.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we
I don't
were
think of
we
him
were
as
here.
a city guy. I think of him as cultured, suburban guy.
Cultured Parkville guys,
He is cultured.
So,
I just didn't know you lived in the city. So I don't remember
So
that about
lived in
you.
the city for 9 years, and so it's where both my boys were born here in the city. And so Susan has been a longtime member of Christ Lutheran Church. Her grandmother went to this church, and this was a ministry of Christ Lutheran Church. They had a space. The undercroft of the church is where this started and still is today. So it started off as a church ministry. It is now its own separate entity living in the basement of the church. But
That's still a church, though, right?
It's
It-
still
it's
a
You
still
can
church.
still go to church there.
Still
a-
What kind
a
of
great
church is it?
Actually, the shelter is right underneath the sanctuary. It's like a blessing for the families.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
So it's right there.
What kind of church is it? I don't
It's
know the name of
Lutheran.
the church.
Christ Lutheran Church.
Church.
Christ
All right.
Lutheran Church.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware. I mean, I see it, and my wife's always been the one that's taken stuff over to you, and basic goods. And she thought, well, we don't need this anymore. Someone else's blankets, stuff, women's clothing. She's done all of that. We've donated to Goodwill and other places as well, but you were a block away. She's like, I'm not saving that for good. We're taking that down there right now.
Yes.
So in your place, give us a current look at your place and how people can help you. What kinds of things can people donate to BOSS, Baltimore Outreach Services?
Okay, so we are a homeless shelter for women and children. So naturally, we could use feminine hygiene, all kinds of things like that, cleaning products, those types of things, clothing, blankets. When I say clothing, maybe seasonal clothing, things that are in season for the kids, socks, underclothes, those kinds of things that families, would use.
How long would a woman with her children who comes to you, comes today, it's early February, tough situation, bad, no help, they come, they move in with you, maybe no job. Where do you begin on a typical, not that anything's typical, it's terrible that this is typical, but where do you begin in the process of, we want to see you a month, 2 months,
When they come in, the first thing we do is say, take a breath. Take a breath, feel safe, feel warm.
you're okay now?
Yeah, you're okay
You're
now.
going to be okay.
Many of the women and children were either living in their car or sleeping outside or whatever the case may be. So we want them to feel like, okay, you're safe. Just take a breath, kind of get your control back.
Sleeping outside, man, it's February.
Yeah.
Like, it's February.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your control back. And then once they do that, kind of understand, okay, this is a safe place for me because they've got all kinds of trauma going on. There's all kinds of trauma
There's
that they
a
have to
story
overcome.
as to how they got there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't want to share that. And you don't
That's
need
right.
to know.
That's right. Not right away.
Right,
Not
right,
right away.
right.
And then we have a case manager, an excellent clinical case manager that works with them. And we put them on like an action plan, so to speak.
Strategy.
They go into the system of homeless services so they can be matched with housing. So hopefully when they leave the shelter, and 9 times out of 10 this is the case, they go to permanent housing. So, but before they get to permanent housing, we have to work through all the barriers that cause their homelessness in the first place. And so sometimes that takes time. Sometimes it's 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, sometimes even a year. But
so
we
you have had people that have spent a year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But there's no
because-
timeline on this. You're just
No,
you're
there's no
trying to-
timeline. The goal is to have the women to leave the shelter
and never come back.
and never come back.
Right.
And be in a safe place and be solid and be housed.
How many years you been with Boss, Yvonne?
5 years.
5 years. So I would think through 5 years you've had some beautiful lady that was torn and tattered that came to you and you fixed it up.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
3 years later, they've come back and
Yes,
say, this is
yes.
my 8-year-old who's now 11.
Yes.
She's now in school. I've
Yes.
got a job. We're living over in East Baltimore.
Yes.
That's it.
And that's
the
why we
win.
do the work we do, right?
That's the win, right?
Yes, we just have 4 families move from the shelter into permanent housing. And so we also do outreach where we follow the families for up to 3 years. So we kind of keep tabs on them so that they don't return to homelessness, and we can provide them with the services they need.
Feeling a level of success.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
all these years in,
Yes.
right? I mean, all these years in. How many years have you been doing it, Gregg? I know it's at least 7 or 8 for me.
For being
we're-
involved
we're
with
Boss,
Boss.
yes.
Yeah, 20. The whole
You've
the
done
whole
all
thing.
20.
Yeah. Mhm.
So from the time you were living downtown.
Yes.
Well, no wonder you.
That's awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
this is why when I did this,
Yeah,
I knew
he's awesome.
you were on my original spreadsheet.
I'm honored.
Well, what happened was I have an inbox of like from 16, 17, 18 that everybody that reached to me during those years, I tried to do one segment, and you come on 3-4 times a year. I mean,
Yeah.
Gregg's a part. Tell me what you really do in the real world. Give a plug for Towson Transfers
All
right
right,
now,
hey.
because I got this a Rodecaster. I got all this new stuff here.
Yeah, Towson Transfers is.
We're in a real restaurant. It's
Yeah,
all
we
right.
are. Yeah. Hey, Towson Transfers, you have old media. You have videotapes, films, slides,
Yes,
any kind of
yes.
pictures. We transfer that to digital so they can you can rediscover and preserve these memories that you've had. And I heard my ad on the way over here this morning. Thank you.
Dude, I was.
He did. He
I-
said, my ad just played.
I was out in Carson City, Nevada 2 weeks ago, and don't ask, but it was fun. So I was out there, and I was alone and sort of bored, and I drove by this antique shop that said record store. And, I collect Pacifica belt buckles. Today I have my Yes, because I want people to say yes.
look at that.
This is my 1970, it's my Yes one. Tommy Conwell loved this one. So I'm out in this record store looking at music and stuff, and they had all sorts of old stuff. And I saw an actual Betamax, like a Betamax player, and it said right on top, still plays. And I'm like, well, what would I stuff in it? I never had a Betamax. I had a VHS.
Yeah.
Betamax was weird.
Yeah.
But you,
I have a Betamax.
I know you do. You have everything.
I do.
You're like a museum of leftover old toys of electronics.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and they work, and people come in with these formats. Say, can you do this?
Dude,
And
I got an 8-channel Mackie board that used to run this thing here. It's yours.
All right.
Might have a little coffee in it from back in the day, but I got a Rode. Aren't you proud of me getting all
I am.
teched up?
Look at these bells and
I'm
whistles. I
live.
love it.
We're live
You're
on the
super
radio,
high-tech.
and I'm making it happen right now.
I love it.
Thank you, JR.
Very
I
proud.
appreciate you. But you're Mr. Tech guy, so you appreciate all
I
this.
do. I love it. It's a very, very good system we have here.
I brought this home, Yvonne, and I was setting all this up to practice having Boss on, Baltimore Outreach, and all my friends, and crab cakes, and free cup of soup, and all that. And my cat got up and looked at all the equipment, and she was staring at the Rodecaster. Because the if I could show the Rodecaster, it really is kind of pretty and colorful. It's sort of this really weird, colorful device. I just bought this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, when did Light Bright become like it looks like a light
That's
bright, doesn't
exactly
it?
what I thought
Yes.
it was when I went.
It looks like a Tonka toy.
It's beautiful.
What's going on with the electronics?
It looks like my calendar. My calendar's colored like
All
that.
I know is my cat got up there and looked at it and thought it might be food.
Yeah.
Baltimore Outreach Services, they're helping great people in the community.
Yes.
They're down at the Inner Harbor.
Yes.
They're inside of a church, below a church, attached to what used to be where I lived at the Inner Harbor. If you want to give to something, these are great folks to do it. We've given to them. My wife's dropped off a whole bunch of different stuff for ladies and their children. Gregg Landry is my friend from Towson Transfers. They are his charity. He is my sponsor, so we're trying to do some good things right now. You excited about the Orioles, Ravens? What do you got?
Both. Just over the moon. It's fantastic. Very exciting.
The original Free the Birds videographer. Did you ever think the birds would be freed? Because I had a moment this week, like 48 hours after the news broke. The
Yep.
news broke Tuesday. I went and sat on a yoga mat. I came back. I talked about it like it might happen. And then Thursday night, I was pouring a drink. I was home. And I thought to myself, they might let me back in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I might literally, by the end of the summer, be sitting next to Luke.
Yep.
And the first thing my wife says is, you better get a damn free hot dog. That's all. That's what my wife said. My wife said, first thing you do, I want to see you get a free hot dog. And then Luke's like, the hot dogs aren't free anymore. So
No, they're not.
it's been 18 years.
Wow.
But, for you being down at the harbor and being around, tides lift all, but like,
Yeah, it's
more
awesome.
people come downtown, it's going to help your charity as well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for everybody that participates, the city's been a little lonely in recent years. Like, and we left too, but not for that reason. But I like seeing vibrancy downtown. I like
Yeah,
seeing people
yeah.
walk past your church in
Yeah.
Orioles gear
Yeah.
and Adley Rutschman jersey. You feel a
Yeah.
difference of a game
We
day
do.
down there.
We do.
Big
And the
time.
city gives back to us. The O's give back to us. The Ravens give back to us.
Good.
The neighborhood, Federal Hill, gives back to us.
All right. Well, if people want to reach to you, what's the way to find you on the web? What's the way to get in touch with you so that they can be a part of like Gregg and be a good ambassador for what you do at Baltimore Outreach?
We're at baltimoreoutreach.org.
BaltimoreOutreach.org. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
there's
it.
there's describes the program. There's videos that I've produced for them to kind of like show these success
The
stories. you were
videos are going to be
talking about.
good.
They are good.
Greg does them. It's professional.
You're talking about these, the success stories, but we've been able to highlight some of those success stories, and so it's a feel good, opportunity to.
Well,
get
thanks
on
for
that.
bringing some goods
Yeah.
down. Gregg Landry, Towson Transfers. Towson Travel was Chip. My God, I'm thinking back in the day. Moment of silence for Chip, my friend. Yvonne Terry's here. She's at Baltimore Outreach Services. You can find them at baltimoreoutreach.org. You get it's like Oprah. You get a lottery ticket. You get a lottery ticket. 10 times the cash. Our friends at the
Thank you,
Maryland
Nestor.
Lottery are the ones that send us out on the road, as well
thank
as
you.
Window Nation. I got my fun floppy hat here, 86690 Nation. They got doors as well. And
Awesome.
Jiffy Lube Multicare. Come on down. Our friends at Wise Markets inspired me to do this for the Maryland Food Bank. And I got this hanging on one of my computers here. Please donate today a cup of soup or bowl. Pretty clever, didn't you think?
Very clever.
Pretty good.
Well done to your son.
I'm waiting for that C&D. Cash accepted, the Maryland Food Bank. We're here. We're serving it up. And I smell the crab cakes. Michelle Bresnik-Walsh, who was my wife's coach from There Goes My Hero, cancer survivor, leukemia survivor,
Yay.
lawyer to the superstars. She's here, and we're going to talk to her next. Thanks for coming by, y'all. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Keep up the
Thank
great
you,
work. I'm glad I
Nestor.
got a chance to meet you finally.
Yeah, me
Yvonne
too,
Terry,
you.
Gregg Landry, stepping out. I'm Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570. Towson, Baltimore. We're doing live radio. We're faking it till we make it. Stay with us. We're Baltimore Positive.